Across Africa, names once whispered now fill classrooms and murals. Pie, Shabaka, Tahaka, Tantamani, not as mates, but as founders. Giants, blood, from Lagos to Johannesburg, art echoes royalty. Welcome to Omar's Story Nook, where history gets spicy, legends get a remix, and imagination runs wild. Every tale you hear is a whisper of Omar, echoing across time, culture, and the soul. We've been told a certain story for far too long, that greatness along the Nile was one-sided, that Egypt stood alone as the beacon of ancient Africa, that its pyramids, its pharaohs, its gods and gold were isolated wonders. But what if we told you Egypt wasn't always the ruler? That for nearly a century the Nile flowed in the direction of black kings? That the seat of Pharaoh once belonged to Nubia, a kingdom farther south in what is now Sudan? These were no impostors, no invaders, no shadows of Egyptian splendor. These were scholars, warriors, kings, queens, builders of pyramids, defenders of Ma'at order, balance, truth. Their dynasty, the 25th, rose when Egypt was fractured, and from the red sands of Kush, they marched north, not to destroy, but to restore. They were called the Black Pharaohs, and though colonial history tried to bury them, the stone remembers, the river remembers, and now, so will we. This is the story of the Nubian kings who wore the double crown and ruled with fire, wisdom, and skin kissed by the sun. Welcome to the highlands of Nubia. Before Africa was partitioned on European maps, before Cairo rose, before Rome spread its legions, before even Egypt became legend, there was Kush, a kingdom nestled in what is now northern Sudan, along the mighty Nile, a place where pyramids pierced the sky, not copies, but their own, narrower, steeper, sacred, a civilization of builders, astronomers, and priest kings. Here in Napata, truth wasn't written in scrolls alone, it was spoken in rituals, in stars, in stone. But far north, Egypt was crumbling. Corrupt priests, weak pharaohs, cities split by greed. The land of Ma'at, order and balance was falling into chaos. And from the red sands, King Pie of Kush watched, a warrior scholar, priest of Amun. He didn't hunger for conquest. He had a calling, restore Egypt, not rule it. In 728 BCE, Pie crossed the Nile. His army wore leopard skins, carried spears and prayers. They marched north like a prophecy. But when he conquered cities, he didn't pillage, he purified. He restored temples, honored the gods, knelt before Amun. At Memphis, Egypt's core, Pie stood tall and declared, I am Pharaoh, I come to rebuild. And for the first time in centuries, Egypt wept not in fear but in relief. The crown of Egypt now sat on a black king's brow, from Kush, from Sudan. And so began the 25th dynasty, the reign of the Black Pharaohs. When Pie returned to Napata, he left more than soldiers behind. He left a legacy, a dynasty. One by one, his king took the throne of Egypt, not to dominate, but to revive. His brother Shabaka followed first, a thinker, a preserver. He didn't rewrite history, he rescued it. When he found temple inscriptions fading, he had them recarved. When sacred texts were lost, he preserved them, especially the Memphite theology, a creation story as old as Egypt itself. Then came the lion Taharka, Pie's nephew. He ruled for nearly 30 years. A pharaoh, yes, but also a fighter, a Buddha, a legend. He stared down the mighty Assyrians and for a time held them back. He defended the Nile from foreign hunger. Under Taharka, Egypt didn't just survive, it glowed again. He built temples to Amun at Gebel Barkal, his Nubian capital. His monuments still stand, stone portraits with broad noses, deep skin, and kingly calm. Not flattery, truth. Even the Bible remembered him. In Isaiah 37:9, his name is spoken with awe. Taharka, king of Ethiopia, came to fight the Assyrians. He was Pharaoh, African, unapologetic. These weren't rulers who erased Egypt. They honored it. They brought back the priests, restored the temples, and reminded the Nile what it meant to flow in balance. And yet, when archaeologists found their statues centuries later, some called them Negroid pharaohs or foreign kings because the truth scared them. But the stone didn't flinch. The stone knew the Black Pharaohs weren't invaders, they were ours. And now, history must remember them, not in footnotes, but in full crown and collar. No empire lasts forever. And for the Nubian pharaohs, the darkness came from the east. The Assyrians, ruthless, relentless, war made flesh. Pharaoh Taharka stood to defend Egypt, older now but still fierce. He'd repelled them once, but this time their hunger was deeper. He fought from Memphis to Thebes with spear, prayer, and memory, but the tide overwhelmed him. Temples fell, cities trembled. Egypt whispered his name in fear, not praise. Taharka retreated to Napata, not broken, just outnumbered. His nephew Tantamani rose, reclaiming Thebes for a moment, but the Assyrians returned with fury, burning, looting, silencing hope. And so, the 25th dynasty ended, not in glory, but in smoke and silence. But Kush endured. The Nubian kings returned to their land, to Meroe and Napata, still building, still dreaming. Centuries later, archaeologists uncovered their pyramids, tall, elegant, countless, but the West couldn't accept. They renamed, reframed, dismissed, yet in Sudanese memory, they were never lost. Taharka, Shabaka, Piye, Tantamani, their names lived in chants and temple songs, because while the world forgot, the Nile did not. Its waters still whisper, we were kings, we were pharaohs, and we are not done. In Sudan's sunlit deserts, where pyramids stand like prayers, that memory is rising again. Not myth, not legend, truth. For too long, the Black Pharaohs were too bold for textbooks, too black for comfortable history. But like the Nile, truth flows back, unstoppable. Now in Khartoum and Karima, a new generation walks in the footprints of kings. They no longer ask, did we rule Egypt? They declare, we did. We still do. Children sketch pyramids in Nubia, not Giza. Pharaohs with full lips and wide noses, no longer distorted, no longer erased. Across Africa, names once whispered now fill classrooms and murals. Piye, Shabaka, Tahaka, Tantamani, not as mates, but as founders. Giants, blood. From Lagos to Johannesburg, art echoes royalty. In the diaspora, pride once stolen returns as proof. Egypt was Africa's crown. Kush was its fire. And in Meroe, nearly 200 pyramids still stand. Each stone a witness. We are still here. Now, the world rewrites. The silence breaks. Sudanese school children bring flowers, not grief. They say, we see you now. This isn't nostalgia. It's a reclaiming. Because in Africa, the crown was never gone. It was waiting. And now, it has returned. They said we came from nowhere, that we were ruled, that we borrowed greatness, that our history was an echo. But echoes do not build pyramids. Echoes do not forge crowns. Echoes do not shape dynasties that bend empires. We were never the footnote. We were always the headline. They buried us in their silence. But our bones remember. Our rivers remember. Our names are still written, not in ink but in granite. Piye, Shabaka, Taharka, Tantamani. Say them again. Say them out loud. Say them like spells to wake the sleeping legacy. Because the pharaohs weren't all pale. They weren't all marble. Some were carved from obsidian. Some ruled from the south. Some walked with fire in their stride and Nubian gold in their veins. And we We don't need their permission to remember. We only need breath. Because this isn't just history, this is a return, a resurrection, a reminder that before the world split us into maps and margins, before the chains and the silence we wore crowns, so let the children sketch pyramids. Let them paint kings in their image. Let the stories rise again, and this time refuse to fade. This isn't just a story. This is Omar's story Nook, where truth whispers between the lines and legacy refuses to fade. Until the next whisper of Omar, stay listening.